We've got Bill and Gareth. Both of you are actually very active in the capital markets and traditional finance. We all know that Bitcoin and crypto has not yet decoupled from the stock market, but now the Fed is about to pump $2 trillion of liquidity to the markets, right? Because of all the banking collapse, everything that's happening, liquidity issues. Now, can you break this down for me and how it will affect the S&P 500? So, Gareth, why don't you show me on the charts why things are looking like they're currently are, and what could be a result of this massive money injection?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, first off, yeah, I mean, it was all a question of how long would it take for the Fed to come back into the system, right? And I guess we got our answer after all. So pretty wild to think about that. But let me just show you guys here. And again, I got a lot of screens here. Hopefully, I'm showing the right one. But basically, what we're seeing here is the Fed trying to come to the rescue in this situation. And I think the bottom line is that this is a factor of them raising rates so fast because they called it transitory, right? Transitory, we always heard about that. And then all of a sudden, we see them being wrong. They're then kind of catching up. They're playing catch up to the situation. And you can't jump rates from 0.25% to where they are now and not expect a breakage in the system, especially when you have all the issues going on in the underlying market. So if we look at the S&P, we've already seen this kind of wedge pattern break lower. We are rallying today. And again, the expectation is there's probably a little bit more upside. For me, the big question is when we get back to this trend line, does it get rejected? But even regardless of this 2 trillion, to me, it's the S&P is still going to go lower. Ultimately, we're headed to a recession in the second half. And I'm in the camp that that this is a big break point. I mean, it's actually a really positive thing for both gold as well as cryptocurrency. Anytime you have a breakage in the fiat banking system, it's going to push more people to consider something like a Bitcoin. So while I still don't think Bitcoin's bottom necessarily yet, I still think that the long term for Bitcoin is super, super rosy.
All right, so you think that we're still have not bottomed in the crypto markets at all? That's definitely an interesting take. I mean, I'm sure we all got different opinions here. And guys, don't be shy, right? If you hear something that you don't agree with, it's okay. We all get along. We can all be professionals and say, hey, I don't agree with this for this and that reason. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid. We all got our opinions. And that's what the show is about, right? To get well-rounded information about what we think is happening in the crypto markets. I personally think, obviously I'm not a TA person. I'm just a hodler here. I'm just trying to, survive like every other person out here. I think we've bottomed out. Everything that's happening with the pivot, with the, we're hoping there's a pivot for the Federal Reserve and just the banking crisis. I think the bottom for Bitcoin could be in. I mean, I don't know. That's just my personal worthless opinion. Like one of our,
this is not worthless, buddy. Like there's definitely, again, this is just one thing to keep in mind is that as a technician of the charts, there's just pivot points for me, right? So until we get above certain levels, I have to go with the ultimate trend of the markets and where things are going. Now, if we get above certain levels, then I start saying, okay, now this tells me there's likely further upside, maybe the bottom's in. We just haven't done that per the charts yet, at least from my analysis. But listen, there's so many people that say the bottom's in that you can't discount that either. Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually agree with Gareth in the sense that we are still in a downtrend. So you can't quite say that the bulls are back in full force. And honestly, I am skeptical on the bottom calling because when we had that 17.5 level and then we consolidated, I honestly was convinced that was, and then we got the 15.5 anyway, kind of threw everyone off guard. But I do have to say there's a lot of confluence on the charts that I'm seeing previously historically that, we can get into later that I do think are giving a lot of signs that maybe everyone who did sell, sold. I mean, I can't really imagine with everything that's happened, all the collapses, the banks, the FTXs, the weak hands, the speculators. I just can't imagine there being really that much more money that would leave if you haven't left already. I mean, what is the next thing that would really scare someone? World War, something like, what could,
I would just throw out there, for my thesis, I don't think it's necessarily going to be another FTX. For me, it's thinking the S&P has probably another 25, 30% down. And then ultimately, if that happens, how does crypto hold up in that face? I don't think it's quite ready to stand on its own yet as not a risk asset. And so if we did drop, let's say 25% more on the S&P, can Bitcoin stay at 24,000, 25,000, or is it going to get pushed back down just in panic selling? But yeah, this is what makes the debate great, right? I mean, it's fantastic.
That's right. Debate crypto.
We've never seen it yet, but I feel like at some point, with the decoupling will happen at some point. I don't know what's gonna break the camel's back or whatever, but I do think
for sure
it's coming.